I don't feel a preference for a human editor that's been working for me for 6 months versus an AI that's been working with me for 6 months. What year do you predict that will be the case?
I mean, my guess for that is, there's a lot of problems that are basically like we can do this when we have the country of geniuses in a data center. And so, my picture for that is, again, if you made me guess, it's like 1 to 2 years, maybe 1 to 3 years.
So, I just finished watching this interview with Dario Amodei. He's the CEO of Anthropic, the guy's building Claude. And honestly, the vibe shift here is genuinely massive because usually Dario is known as the safety guy, right? He's the cautious one. But he went on Dwarkesh Patel's podcast, and the conviction he has about these extremely short timelines is it's wild. Dwarkesh really grills him, asking him straight up why he thinks we're going to see AGI, or what Dario calls a country of geniuses in a data center, in literally 1 or 2 years, not 10. And the confidence here isn't just hype. It feels like he's looking at internal data that we don't have. You fundamentally need to see how he answers this. So take a look at this first clip.
We're going to achieve AGI in this century. And the crux is, you say we're hitting the end of the exponential, and somebody else looks at this and says, oh, yeah, we're making progress. We've been making progress since 2012, and then 2035 we'll have a human-like agent. And so I want to understand what it is that you're seeing which makes you think, yeah, obviously we're seeing the kinds of things that evolution did or that within the human lifetime learning is like in these models, and why think that it's 1 year away and not 10 years away?
I actually think of it as like there's kind of two cases to be made here, or like two claims you could make, one of which is like stronger and the other of which is weaker. So I think starting with the weaker claim, when I first saw the scaling back in 2019, I wasn't sure. This was this was kind of a 50-50 thing, right? I thought I saw something that was, and my claim was this is much more likely than anyone thinks it is. Like, this is wild. No one else would even consider this. Maybe there's a 50% chance this happens. On the basic hypothesis of, as you put it, within 10 years, we'll get to, what I call kind of country of geniuses in a data center. I'm at like 90% on that. And it's hard to go much higher than 90% because the world is so unpredictable. Yeah. Maybe the irreducible uncertainty would be if we were at 95%, where you get to things like, I don't know, maybe multiple companies have, kind of internal turmoil and nothing happens, and then Taiwan gets invaded and like all the fabs get blown up by missiles and then
now you're drink to scenario.
Yeah. You could construct a scenario where there's like a 5% chance that you can construct a 5% world where like things get delayed for 10 years. That's maybe 5%. There's another 5%, which is that I'm very confident on tasks that can be verified. So I think with coding, I'm just, except for that irreducible uncertainty, I think we'll be there in 1 or 2 years. There's no way we will not be there in 10 years in terms of being able to do it end-to-end coding. My the one little bit of fundamental uncertainty, even on long timescales, is this thing about tasks that aren't verifiable, like planning a mission to Mars, like doing some fundamental scientific discovery, like CRISPR. Tasks that aren't verifiable, like end-to-end coding. My the one little bit of fundamental uncertainty, even on long timescales, is this thing about tasks that aren't verifiable, like planning a mission to Mars, like doing some fundamental scientific discovery, like CRISPR, like writing a novel. Hard to verify those tasks. I am almost certain that we have a reliable path to get there, but like, if there was a little bit uncertainty, it's there. So on the 10 years, I'm like, 90%, which is about as certain as you can be. Like, I think it's crazy to say that this won't happen by 2035. Like, in some sane world, it would be outside the mainstream.
I mean, essentially, how crazy are the times we're living in right now? You have the CEO of one of the top 3 AI labs in the world, a guy who's seen the scaling laws hold up for years, telling you that you're objectively wrong if you don't think we're getting super intelligence within the decade. If you told someone this in 2021, they would have looked at you like you were hallucinating, but now it's just Monday. But here's the thing that I think people are missing, and this is the technical nuance that really matters. Everyone assumes we need continual learning, which basically means the model learns on the fly and remembers it forever, just like a human does. But Dario drops this massive bomb, or he thinks we might not even need that. He thinks if you just scale up the model and use massive context windows, that's enough to be economically transformative. It's a huge claim because it challenges the entire roadmap of how we thought AGI would be built. Watch him explain the scale argument here.
You throw a bunch of data and tasks into the models, and then they generalize. So it's like learning, but it's like learning from more data and not learning over kind of one human or one model's lifetime. So again, this is situated between evolution and human learning. But once you learn all those skills, you have them. And just like with pre-training, just how the models know more, if I look at a pre-trained model, it knows more about the history of samurai in Japan than I do. It knows more about baseball than I do. It knows more about, low pass filters and electronics and all of these things. Its knowledge is way broader than mine. So I think even just that may get us to the point where the models are better at kind of better at everything. And then we also have, again, just with scaling the kind of existing setup, we have the in-context learning, which I would describe as kind of like human on-the-job learning, but like a little weaker and a little short term. Like you look at in-context learning, you give the model a bunch of examples, it does get it. There's real learning that happens in context. And like 1 million tokens is a lot. That's that can be days of human learning, right? If you think about the model, kind of reading 1 million words, it takes me, how long would it take me to read 1 million? I mean, like days or weeks at least. So you have these two things, and I think these two things within the existing paradigm may just be enough to get you the country of geniuses in a data center. I don't know for sure, but I think they're going to get you a large fraction of it. There may be gaps, but I certainly think just as things are, this, I believe, is enough to generate trillions of dollars of revenue. That's one. That's all one. Two is this idea of continual learning, this idea of a single model learning on the job. I think we're working on that too. And I think there's a good chance that in the next year or two, we also solve that. I think you get most of the way there without it. I think the trillions of dollars I think the trillions of dollars a year market, maybe all of the national security implications and the safety implications that I wrote about in Adolescence of Technology can happen without it. But I also think we, and I imagine others, are working on it. And I think there's a good chance that we get there within the next year or two. There are a bunch of ideas. I won't go into all of them in detail, but one is just make the context longer. There's nothing preventing longer context from working. You just have to train at longer context and then learn to serve them at inference. And both of those are engineering problems that we are working on and that I would assume others are working on as well.
So I actually kind of agree with him here, which is terrifying because if you look at the trajectory of context windows, I mean, we went from 8K to 100K to 1 million tokens essentially overnight. The AI doesn't need to learn in the traditional sense if you can just shove the entire context of the job into its working memory. It's like starting a new job, but instead of taking 3 months to onboard and learn the company culture, you just upload the entire corporate history and every email ever sent into your brain in 3 seconds. But, and this is where I get a little skeptical, there's still that sim to real gap, right? Generalizing to the physical world is fundamentally harder than generalizing to text. But Dario thinks that once you have the brain, that country of geniuses, controlling a robot body is just a downstream engineering problem that gets solved very quickly. He thinks the robotics revolution is going to be compressed in a very short window right after the intelligence explosion. Check this out.
A human can learn how to teleoperate current hardware, but current AI models can't, at least not in a way that's super productive. And so if we have this ability to learn like a human, should it solve robotics immediately as well?
I don't think it's dependent on learning like a human. It could happen in different ways. Again, we could have trained the model on many different video games, which are like robotic controls, or many different simulated robotics environments, or just, train them to control computer screens and they learn to generalize. So it will happen. It's not necessarily dependent on human-like learning. Human-like learning is one way it could happen. If the model's like, oh, I pick up a robot, I don't know how to use it, I learn. That could happen because we discovered discovering continual learning. That could also happen because we trained the model on a bunch of environments and then generalized, or it could happen because the model learns that in the context length. It doesn't actually matter which way. If we go back to the discussion we had like an hour ago, that type of thing can happen in several different ways.
Yeah.
But I do think when for whatever reason the models have those skills, then robotics will be revolutionized, both the design of robots, because the models will be much better than humans at that, and also the ability to kind of control robots. So we'll get better at building the physical hardware, building the physical robots, and we'll also get better at controlling it. Now, does that mean the robotics industry will also be generating trillions of dollars of revenue? My answer there is yes, but there will be the same extremely fast but not infinitely fast diffusion. So will robotics be revolutionized? Yeah, maybe tack on another year or two.
And this brings me to the part that really stuck with me, which is this idea of the historical lens. We're terrible at noticing history while we're living through it. Dario talks about how, in retrospect, all of this is going to look inevitable if you look at the compute charts, if you look at the investment capital. But right now, in the moment, it just feels like noise. We normalize the exponential so fast that it just feels like another Tuesday or another podcast episode with a CEO saying wild sci-fi stuff. It's the boiling frog effect, basically. We're sitting inside the singularity, scrolling Twitter and getting bored. But fundamentally, I think historians are going to look at this specific 24-month window as the turning point. I want to know where you guys land on this spectrum. Are we boiling frogs, or is this just hype? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button, and I'll catch you in the next one.